we will have stuff to talk about regarding Visual Studio and what's new in Visual Studio 2013 for developers. So when we talk about Visual Studio, we have a lot to cover, but I will make sure to, based on our time, to select some selected features that we can talk about. So mainly we'll be talking about the connected IDE, the themes and visual design, the editor productivity, the IDE and performance improvement, and also we'll be talking about the performance tool, the new added performance tool for Windows 8, for Windows Phone applications, and what we have new for developer in .NET 4.5.1. And we'll talk about Visual Studio Online and what it brings to developers. So to just draw your attention to some important notes, Visual Studio is not just about the IDE. It's just about the IDE, the technology, the infrastructure, the application lifecycle management. So when we talk about Visual Studio, we have a lot to cover. So for example, at the end of the session, we'll be talking about Visual Studio Online and how we as a development team can collaborate with each other in terms of source code, source control analysis, source control, and how we add the source control, add our projects to the source control, how we work as a team regarding team room, regarding collaboration, how we actually organize our work in terms of Agile, CMMI, and other stuff that we'll be talking about. So let's start by the connected IDE. What is the connected IDE? Usually when we work as a developer, you maintain some configuration on your IDE and some as we call settings, where I customize the toolbar, I customize the icons, I customize everything just for me as I got comfortable to work with those setup on every IDE. But this is only on my machine. So if I move to another machine and I need to have the same setup, I should start customizing it from the beginning, or even more. If I need to upgrade the operating system, if I do a new installation, if I move to a new hardware, then I have to do the same stuff again and again. But with the connected IDE, use a single sign-on to the Visual Studio IDE with your Microsoft account. Everything you are doing on your IDE regarding the setting, regarding the accounts, regarding accessing to Visual Studio Online, it will be all synchronized to your account on Microsoft. And whenever you log in with any IDE, with any version of Visual Studio later on, just to sign in, you will get the same experience. So it is all about keep whatever you have in terms of information, in terms of setting and customization you did in one centralized place, which is your Microsoft account. Later on, when you join from any machine, you can restore this information back. And the other thing is the notification center. So we need a centralized notification center. Whenever you have any update, whenever there is an update that you have to do, whenever there is something you have installed, extension or anything that got updated, we need sort of centralized place where you can give you some information about, okay, this is, for example, a new update for Visual Studio. You have to update your trial license. You have to update, for example, this Bing SDK or whatever. So consider it as one common location where you can get all the notification around the component and around the IDE. Let's jump into a demo. So this is Visual Studio. So let's actually talk about the connected IDE and what is the connected IDE. Now, when you open Visual Studio, I'm signed in with my account, so I choose to customize the themes. I have the lightweight theme. So, as you know, you have the option to customize whatever theme you need in your Visual Studio to use. For example, dark theme, blue theme, and you have this customization out for you. So, the account here is your Microsoft account, where we maintain all the information, where you have to connect it to Team Foundation Service Online or Visual Studio Online. And at the same time, you can jump to the account setting, where you can have information about your Visual Studio license and at the same time your account. So for now, I have just the theme, for example, to have the blue theme. So if I sign out from Visual Studio, now I have signed out and tools option, and say, okay, now I need this to be the dark one. I change the theme to be the dark one. Now, If I sign in again with my account, I will provide my Hotmail account. Background is once I signed in, Visual Studio will retrieve the setting, the same exact setting I have saved regarding the theme, regarding anything else. It will restore the same setup I have, even the themes and the configuration, everything. So this is what we mean by connected IDE. Again, if you need to customize what to be synchronized and what not to be synchronized, you can even customize this from the tool setting and just to point to the synchronization settings. So I can go to tools, options, and I will have to search for synchronization. But with Visual Studio, we have a new thing, which is the quick launch. So I can say sync, and it will search all the items in Visual Studio to get me the sync, the items that contain sync. So for example, sync setting on the environment, when I click on it, the exact tools options that I used, and at the same time it will jump automatically to the synchronized settings. Here I can actually select what to be synchronized, what not to be synchronized. For example, appearance, tool shortcut, startup, test editor setting. So all that information are maintained with my Microsoft account. So later on, if I logged in from any other machine, even I logged in with my account from a machine on the cloud, from a friend machine, your account, and you will get the same setup. Later on, sign out, your friend will sign in, and will get the same exact information. And as for the notification center, if you click here on the notification center, you'll get all the things related to any new updates. So for example, here's an update for Nougat. Here's for download for the offline help content. So any other information or any other notifications that you need, you will get it on the same place. And you also can share your experience with the team regarding the feedback. So with the feedback, I can send a smile, I can send a prawn, I can actually report a bug in Visual Studio, and all of that dedicated with a screenshot to the team where you have an issue with your Visual Studio and even any information that makes sense for the team to investigate regarding Visual Studio. So again, we care about the experience, we care about you. So whenever you have any issue with Visual Studio, you can report it back to the team, you can report it as an enhancement, you can report it as a bug. So all the other information, you will have it, you can report it back to the team anytime. So the notification center, as we say, is like a lightweight center where you have all the common information that you need. And at the same time, regarding the themes, we got many feedback regarding Visual Studio 2012 around the flexibility to add themes and flexibility to change and so on. So simply you can just type anywhere in the search window and you get to all the stuff related to the themes. So here the options, you have the color theme where you can pick from a light, a dark, a blue, and even more. In the end of the presentation, you'll find like we have an extension on Visual Studio Gallery where it allows you to do whatever you need with the look and feel for Visual Studio in terms of coloring and so on, and you can just use it for your environment and use it for your Visual Studio. The other thing is, as a developer, we always work with multiple instances of Visual Studio. So, for example, if I open a second instance of Visual Studio, you will find that automatically to identify the active one, if I resize this one, you will find that we dim the icon automatically for you. So this means that this is the active instance, it has different color, while the inactive instance has a different color. So you can easily pick between, if you have multiple instances, to understand which instance of Visual Studio that you are currently using and currently working on. As for the editor enhancement, we have brings a lot of enhancement to your editor for how you write the code and how you analyze your code. So one of them, I'm just opening a presentation now. Are you able to see the screen or disconnected from your side?
No, not yet.
Okay, just a second. I'm sharing it again.
Yes, it's coming up.
Okay. Okay, see it now?
Black screen. Yes, now.
Okay, so the other thing I have in Visual Studio is regarding the productivity, how you write the code, how you detect the code, how you find, search it, and do the normal development stuff that we always do. So we bring it here is how easily you can find a variable or can search and find a variable. So as easy as I will open any project I have, my company, for example, it is a demo project that's available there. And if I click on Control F to find an instance variable, and just to click on prefix or type prefix, you'll find that Visual Studio automatically highlight any word that contain the prefix items that you have added. So you can easily find that all the prefix highlighted automatically for you to easily find them and easily dealing with them if you need to refactor them, if you need to justify the instance, and so on. And enhance it quick and find one to allow you actually to find the variables quickly or whatever item you are searching for. As same as we search for the editor, we still can search for the code as well, the code items as well. So the other thing is, if you, for example, open here my company, let's go for the client, my company. If you expand, for example, the company, will dig down into the variables and from the Solution Explorer, and this time will dig down into the item and method and everything. So, for example, if you click on my company, I close this find window. If I click on my company, you'll just navigate it to the my company directly. So, if I just right click here and say, okay, is it used by or is it called by? This allow me to find all the code bases that call this method or that use this method. So if I click on is used by, it will all the solution items that you have to find all the code base that use this constructor for your class, which is my company client. So if I click on that one, I will be navigated to my company instance where I call here employee service get logged in employee. I will get here to the client variable where I actually initiate a new object from the class that called my company. Then this is the exact usage I'm searching for. So I can get back to the Solution Explorer again. So the same I can actually is called by to get what method is calling this one, and I will be navigated again. So it is like a quick, easy way to find all the references, dig deep into the classes, and even more, find the more relevant information quickly instead of going through find and then investigate every file to see how this is connected to each other. Another thing we have added an enhancement as well for the productivity is the scroll bar. Yeah, it is a scroll bar and it is really a nice feature to have. So if you right click here on the scroll bar and you find the scroll bar options, we have added what we call a map mode for the scroll bar. Map mode allow you to get like a quick overview about your source code without even navigating or scroll down or scroll up in the same place. So maybe I'm writing something here in this method, but I can also have access to other methods and read them from the same line quickly. And this allows me to get into the file, quickly check what items, what methods, and so on, without even leaving my place. And this is what we call like enhanced scroll bar. You can up, move down, and so on, and you'll get access to the information you need. So, for example, if I navigate to my company client again and say, okay, I will put here like a breakpoint, automatically it reflected here on the scroll bar to see that a different icon has been added here to know that we have added a scroll bar. We have added a breakpoint. Even if I scroll down to the end of the file and say I'm writing something wrong on the end of the file, which is error, of course, you'll have it already populated here. So I can easily navigate to understand if we have different breakpoints in this method or this class, or even if we have wrote something wrong or something have a compilation issue, I can even get it from the scroll bar here. So it is like a quick access to information in the file without even leaving the file. And the scroll bar options, you can customize it as you need. So you can keep actually using the same old bar Just guys, can someone mute, please? Okay. So you can here go to the scroll bar option, where you can customize the scroll bar and the preview as well, medium, wide, or even narrow information, where you can get the scroll bar information while you dig them. So all of that is like we added many enhancements. Like for example, if I need to move some line of codes to the top, just cut them and go to the line where to add these files and paste them. You can just highlight your line of codes and click on Alt and up, and it will move the line of codes for you automatically without even cut and paste and other stuff. So you can easily make this, like if you need to add, arrange your file, arrange your code base and so on, move up and move down, you can do that actually quickly without even cut and paste. The other thing also is, as we write some code, we need to, for example, jump to a definition for a method. So to jump a definition, you just click on F12 and you will get to the same file if the file is already there. So let's close all the files that we have, open my company and say, okay, I need, for example, to get more information about this service. So if I click on F12, you will have a different tab here on the right, which is a preview tab that allow you to quickly open tabs on the right hand side that you just need to access some information quickly from it. So you can bind them to keep it as a tab, or you can close it and leave it as a preview tab as you need. So later on, just to close the preview tabs because you don't need actually to focus on them, you just need to access to more, the information from that file quickly as possible. And it is the same as go to definition that we used to do, which is you just right and say, okay, go to definition, and you will be also open that on a tab. And this actually allow you to focus more on the code files that you're already working on, and the other files that you just open it for a quick preview on the items that or the stuff that existing on this item. The other thing is, if I just click, for example, or go to the employee service and say, okay, let's find all the information related to that one. So if you click on Control and Comma, you will get it searched automatically for you and have all the information related to employee service. Just by scroll or use the arrows up and down, you will get access to every instance that you have used the employee service for, even for that class and where to access it and all the information around that one. So we even make it much better to understand even your code base and how to jump and how to access the information quickly. Another thing we added that really a nice feature that I'm personally use is the big view. So sometimes I need to understand before I even jump to write anything or even continue working on that file, I just need to understand what this employee service contains in terms of implementation. But I don't need to jump to another file and then come back again to the same file. Even on the preview mode, I may be just distracted from what I need to do. So we have added what we call a big view. In big view, just to click on Alt F12, and you will get what we call a big view. A big view is like a smaller tab, like the preview tab we open, but in that tab, you will get actually the method definition in the same place here, so you can understand that this employee service actually implement the base request class and implement an interface called employee service, and this is what it contains. And as you notice, it will have the same exact scroll bar information here. So you even can scroll bar to the file, you can even access to this information quickly to understand what this service contains before even you can write some code that access certain element inside this class. So you can just get the information all in all without just a big view.
How do you do this scroll bar in the right of the screen?
So for the scroll bar, you just click on the normal scroll bar you have. It should be look like that one.
Okay.
Okay? This is a normal scroll bar. But here, if you just click on it and go to scroll bar options, you'll find that we add another option called use map mode. Map mode allow you to have a quick preview to your source code file from just the scroll bar without even navigating or scrolling through the file. So it allows you to easily access a file while you are in the same place without even scroll up and scroll down. Okay? Cool.
Yeah.
So the big view allow you easily to, by Alt and F12, to go through all the lines and the file, what the file contains, the definition, and everything. And you can even promote that to tab later on. So you can have it as a normal tab file view, or you can just use the big view, even from the context menu, to get the access to the file definition. Okay. And even more, we have added what we call code lens. So code lens is something that allows you to do the following scenario. So imagine that you write or you have a big project where you need to understand if you do some refactoring here, or if you change any code in my company client, for example, what methods that will get impacted with that change. So you maybe do it all the way, which is you find all the references and then see how this change will affect those references. But with Visual Studio 2013, we have added what we call code lenses. Code lenses allow you to easily get more information about the classes and the line of codes just by hovering on the method itself. We have added more information here. So like, for example, how many references uses this class. So you can easily find here that, okay, those all references in the same file or even in different file that uses the My Company Client class. So you can even understand more about every one of them, but just double click it, you will get navigated to the class that's using your file. So even more, without leaving your code, without doing like find references and all that stuff, you can understand where your method got referenced in any of the classes that you are wrote. And at the same time, if we add more information about unit testing, so for example, you need to understand how many unit testing we have added for this class, and how many of them has been passed, and how many of them has been failed. So you can get all this information as well from here. So even when we will talk about Visual Studio Online, and if this source code file is already on the source control, you can get actually who did the last change for this class, and the test, who did the last checking for this item. So you can even get all information about your class, about your method, without even have to go to search or go to do anything. Everything on big view, code lenses, and even the test information are already there for you. So you can even pick one and run it, or you can run them all. So if I navigate to the get test, this is like a unit test method that we are using to test that the method that called get service actually working fine. So the same way, you have more information about your source code without even leaving the file itself. The other good thing we have added as well is how we help you visualize more information about that one. Before we leave that one, you still have more option to customize the code lenses. So by just right click on the line of code that contains the references and lenses information, you'll get the lenses options where you can customize what things you need to show and what things you need to hide. So for example, the bugs and the work item and the code review, the tested by, and even the authors is all coming from source control, for example. So if our files on source control, I will get all this. And other than that, I can show the references for sure, so I can understand at least what are the what references or what classes actually use this method. And you can see the test status as well. Okay. So the other thing we have added, understand your code but in a visual way. So it is very nice to understand how your class is connected to each other and how those class contains in terms of variables and how the links between this class and the other classes and so on. So when we have this information visually, it gives us more and more indicator about how the code is structured. From Visual Studio, you can simply right-click project or even any method. I will go here and say, okay, show the code map for this project, which is a client project. It will actually scan all your source code and start structuring your source code into map. So here is the client method that you have, and from the client method, you will also have this information. It contains visitor.client, visitor.client.web, and visitor.client.document response.
Please, sorry, if you can really explain about the code map, because I have some issues with your voice. Please again.
Okay, sure. So the code map again. So sometimes we inherit different projects and we implement different classes and different interfaces. So the complexity of our code starts to be increased. And as a way, we only have an access to some references, and even more, we can dig deep into understanding if, for example, my client implement iCompany interface. iCompany client interface. So I can go to this interface to understand it and so on. But I'm not aware of how many other classes we have, for example, implemented my company client, or even how this class, if it implement another interfaces or not. I need to have something visually that allow me to understand quickly a graphical representation that contains all the relation between methods, objects, and anything inside the project. So it gives me like a visual way to understand what is inside this project, which is my client project, and even more in terms of classes, what those classes contains and what those classes implement in terms of interfaces or classes and so on. So it gives you a visual way to have your code plotted into a graphical way to represent it. Instead of the files and the project structure you have in the Solution Explorer, now even you understand what component existing in your project. And as we see, this is not only the things that you will get from code map. You can also get deep into single classes to understand what those classes is actually contains. So even more, my company client, how it's related with my company web client. So you will get even the references between the classes and who is using what and when and so on. And even more, the security services, for example, here, you'll find that, okay, this security service actually is being referenced in visitor.client.web. And I say, okay, instead of visualizing the whole project, I need to visualize my company client. So for my company client, let's close that one. For my company client, could you please visualize it in a code map? But I need to visualize certain information, like find all the references on code map, or find the related item on code map. So find all the references in code map, you get your component, which is my company, and all the components that are referencing your company and use it. So for example, you find here register method is using your my company client method. You'll find the service get test. You'll find all the test components that are using it. You find as well the register component that using it. So I can understand even visually who are the component or the methods that are using my company client. And if I click on register, I will find here the code line for register. And yes, it is actually return, or he returned a new object line. It is really using it. So again, I can visualize whatever other information I need as well. So I can close this program and say, okay, now show me the related item that contains in the namespace, or show me the method in this call, or the references for this call, or the fields that being references. All of that in a code map. So instead of just to find the list of references and find them actually in a view, you can actually also see what my company as a class is using in terms of objects or even properties. So you find, for example, that it uses URL prefix. It uses my employee service. So I can visualize anything related to the code in the code map. And the good thing is, maybe we have more information added regarding how I can analyze my solution to detect any unused variables or any unused. One of them is I can visualize here my company in a code map. Open that one, expand it, and please, here from the layout, you find different analyzers. So you can say, okay, find me the hubs analyzer. Hubs analyzers give you more information about what is the main hot method or hot component that's being used in your project. So for example, you find that my company client is the hottest method that's being used inside your project. That's because, for example, it is critical, it is centralized. So you can even understand what is the main method or the main component inside my project that's being referenced a lot. And the other thing is, I can also, from the layout, apply different analyzer. Unreferenced node. For example, it will give you all the nodes that not being referenced. And you have to expand the node to understand more about which component inside this node is not being used probably, or actually not being used at all. And even more, from the analyzers, I can also detect the circles. So if any component has a circular references with other component like we have here, I can actually detect that easily. You can find, okay, this one depend on this one, and the visit depend on the visitor, and so on. So I can even understand the circular analysis between the component, if the component is calling each other. So the code map is very fun. It is very nice feature in terms of visualizing and graphically have your solution and the component inside the solution, how to use them, how to manage them, and even more how to run different analyzers on your code base in order to understand the unused variable, the circular analysis component depend on each other, and so on. And even more, the good thing is you can also understand what is the hot methods inside your component that being used currently. And I can even go to, for example, to my component here, my company web client, and say, okay, flag this component to follow up. So I flag it in terms of I need to follow up with this component, what is the relationship, who is accessing it, and so on. So I get it highlighted to understand more about it. I can add a new command. So I can say, for example, why this is not used probably, for example. So I can even add commands, so anyone, and I can save this code map, and I can even share it through an email, through an image, through a portable class, even through a raw file, the DMG file. So I can even share it with anyone to understand, okay, this is how I look into the code, and this is my notes for it. It seems that we have some methods that we are not using properly, or even we have some nodes that being referenced circularly. So let's fix this, or let's get this fixed in a good way. So you can even share this information with anyone. So you can just share it through an email, as an image, a portable XPS, which can be opened with the IE, and even save it as a file. Okay. So whenever you need to understand anything related to the code in a visual way, always refer to the code map. We have different and we have more other features that actually care much about the architecture of your solution, the dependencies, the component, and so on. But code map is a very nice lightweight one. You can just pick it from any method or any class and just right click and say, okay, show me the code map for that class, or even show me, find all the references in a code map. So all that stuff we consider as a productivity enhancement for the developer to understand more about his solution, to understand more about the component, and so on. We have a lot of other features that coming from if you are a web developer, if you are a Windows 8 developer or a Windows Phone developer, we have a lot of enhancement. Some of them, for example, now with Visual Studio 2013, you already got the SDK for Windows Phone embedded. So you don't have actually to go download it as a separate. It is already included in the main Visual Studio installation file. We have also added what performance and the diagnostic hub, where you can just start simply by what component, what application you need, and what is the diagnostics and the performance measurement you need to measure for your application. So we created one centralized hub that allow you to analyze any of your application, whatever the type is, a web component, a Windows application, and understand more about its behavior. In the same time, you already have here what we call an analysis node, where you have a lot of other information. We specifically need the analyzer or the profiler to understand more about your CPU or your memory utilization inside your application. And moreover, we have added what we call code clone analysis. So code clone analysis allow you simply to scan all your source code files, find any duplicate files or any line of code that being copied and used, and then do the proper refactoring to have them in a centralized place, for example. So when we work as a team, sometimes you find someone need to have this method, need to access this method, but he is not sure if this is the right one or not. So instead of actually asking and reuse the component, he sometimes copies the same exact code existing inside the method body, and they change it to fit within his business logic or what he needs to be implemented. So with the code analysis or code clone analysis, it allows you simply to scan all your source code. Whenever we find any match, any code copy that has been, or any code block that has been copied exactly, or have a strong match, or have exact match, or have a medium match, it just shows you that this component are actually the same. Why not refactoring them? Why not having the same logic in one centralized component and use it across all your solution? So for example, here you find that we have an exact match in 2 files. Those lines and the exact those lines as well. So it gives you that those are exact match, which means that exact line of codes has been copied from one place to other place. Strong match, maybe you have a changed variables, you have additional line of codes, or you have removed some code. But it gives you the file and give you the match group, exact, strong, and so on. And you can find that we will find 7 clone groups, 40 clone snippets, and 71 line of code that has been copied. So with Visual Studio, you can even have more information about even the existing, understanding the existing code, whether through a code map, through, I need to optimize this code, so I need to see how many line of code that has been copied, or if anyone is using the same logic but copying it instead of centralizing it. So you have a lot to do, or have a lot of components, or a lot of features that you can use actually to help you get quickly into that. The other thing is, for example, one of the new things we have added in the web development is actually what we call the browser link. So let me run that one. It is a web project. To run on IE, sometimes as a developers we need to have multiple browsers running at the same time to see how our change or our classes or our themes or even our logic is working on different browsers, if we're working with JavaScript or any other component. Okay. So one of the good things is I can always have a copy of that link and say, okay, I will open different browser, here for example Firefox, and say run the same solution again. I will have it on IE as well and Firefox. Now with the browser link, you'll find that if you refresh the browser link or enable the browser link, you'll find that you may have different instances now connected. You'll find the Firefox and you'll find the Internet Explorer. And any other browser I will open, it will be automatically shown in the browser link dashboard, where I can see how many browsers are actually being connected to my application. One of the things that it's nice to be done is whenever I do any change, so let me go to the views, for example, the home one. So whenever I do anything, I can simply click on the browser link to refresh them all over the browsers, all the browsers I have. So I don't have to go to every project or every browser and refresh it manually. I'm maintaining here the connections. I can refresh them. I can refresh all of them at once, and even more. Any change I'm doing here. So, for example, my company visit demo and save it. For example, now I will go to refresh that one and refresh the IE as well. So I will didn't work Firefox. Let's try it for that one. Okay, so because we are doing a redirection, so this is not the right view. So it should be redirected if you just come here and click the URL for the first time, you'll have it, but maybe we didn't modify the right view file. Okay, but in general, with the browser link, you have the flexibility to refresh all the linked browsers automatically without even have to worry about copying the URL directly. And even more, whenever you open an app and hook it with any browser, you'll have it within the browser link, and you'll have it from the browser dashboard. So for example, if we do the same with Chrome, you'll have the Chrome shown up here automatically, And whenever you do any change, and you just click on refresh browser, it will refresh the 3 browsers you have, or the 4 browsers you have, whatever the instance, the number of instances you have already added to your solution. So it is good and something productive to do. And on the other thing is what we call one ASP.NET. It's a centralized implementation for ASP.NET, allow you, instead of having different projects here, so MVC, web forms, web APIs, or Facebook, we have centralized this and simplified it into what we call ASP.NET Web Application. So whenever you create an ASP.NET Web Application, you will have one centralized place where you have asked or choose the application types that you need to implement. Maybe this is an MPT app, this is a app, it is an MVC app, it is a web API app, or even a single page application. So you have the flexibility to choose between whatever you need, and at the same time we centralize the authentication as well. So within the web form itself, you can check within the authentication, what authentication type you need to implement. So I maybe need to implement individual user account, organization account, and implement single sign-on, or this is a web application that will be run internally inside my network. So it may be using Windows authentication or even no authentication at all. So we simplified all the stuff related to the project type in ASP.NET. It is one ASP.NET, and at the same time the authentication model that you can use. So web forms, membership, all the other stuff that you use, it automatically handled for you within how you choose the application type and when you choose the authentication mechanism as well. So that I went quickly through what features we have so far for the developers. We went through the single sign-on and the scenes. We went through the different themes we have. We went through the icons and the different changes we have on the solution. At the same time, we talked about the iterative productivity. We talked about the auto braces. We talked about the line, enhance the scroll bar, the navigation, the big view, and the code lenses, code map, and even the new project template. Like if I need to create an ASP.NET application, what application I should choose? It is one centralized place where you have different descriptions that describe what component you should be using, even more for the authentication as well. And even more for the IDE responsiveness and the performance, we have enhanced this a lot. It is much better, and even more, you can customize all the settings as well from the tools option. And for the performance and diagnostics, we talked about the Analyte and the Performance Diagnostic Hub, which is one hub that can serve all the information related to the performance and diagnostics. You can actually run a project, execute it, do some performance enhancement on your project, and even analyze it, whether it is a Windows Store app, it is an EXE app, or it is a web application running on iOS. And more other stuff like energy consumption and so on that has been added specifically for Windows 8 development. As for Windows 8 4.5.1, we have added more enhancement like 64-bit editing. You can edit and continue, which means we use as a developer to edit some code and debug it. Just a breakpoint, we edit some code and rerun it again. Working for 32-bit application only, but now it works for the 64-bit as well. And even more, the managed memory leaks, you can analyze and debug the managed memory leak. You can even get the memory dump and open it from Visual Studio to understand even how your application is working, and even if there is some failure happen, how you analyze the memory dump through a file. We have added this as well. So even the asynchronous debugging, improvement, and other Windows Store related application, we have added it as well. And we also announced what we call Microsoft Visual Studio Online, or Visual Studio Online, previously known as TFS Service or TFS on the cloud for anyone if you used it. And Visual Studio Online, as simple as we describe what we provide for the developers in terms of infrastructure for source control and other stuff as what we call application lifecycle management. So with Microsoft, you have what we call ALM your way. So you can customize, or you can have different options that serve within the ALM story unit. So for example, as a development team, we always need the source control. We need some components that allow us to upload the source code, versioning it, and later on retrieve single version or retrieve an old version to compare it with other version. And developer, we need to work together. We need to have a centralized place where we can share the same source code and working on it and so on. So we need some more component of that one to be used within our team. So for agile planning, if we need to plan our work, team rooms, if we need to have like a centralized chatting room to chat as a team where about single feature or multiple features or how we implement that. And on top of that, we have different components that will fit within the enterprise story more. So like project server integration for enterprise project, SharePoint development, load testing, other stuff. This is what we call Team Foundation Server, which is a product from Microsoft that you just install it on your own or on your server inside your organization and use it as you. With Visual Studio Online, we introduce the same stuff on the cloud. You don't have to have anything. You just need to have an account on Microsoft, and that's it. You will have your own infrastructure out there, and you can start creating your project and planning them. But we added another layer, which is some services layers that you can use actually to pay as you go or use it when you need it only, like build service, load testing service, continuous deployment to Azure. So I can simply build my project, deploy it to Azure, and even get it tested from a different team URL, and then whenever I do any change, it got deployed automatically to Azure, where people can start testing it from a URL. So this is done by one click. So you can, from Visual Studio, deploy it, or just whenever you do any change and do a check-in, automatically you fire a build. This build will actually get the latest source code, deploy it to Azure, and provide you with URL for your website where your testing team or even your development team can start testing it. And this is all done by one click. So all of that is provided on the cloud on what we call Visual Studio Online. And started with Visual Studio Online, it is as simple as you should navigate to tfs.visualstudio.com. Sorry, I mistyped it. So tfs.visualstudio.com, and you will be navigated to what we call Visual Studio Online. There is some packages because it is a commercial one, but if your team is 5 users, it is free for 5 users. You don't have to pay anything, but you pay extra when you have more users to add. But it is very, very clear that 5 users, Blue 5 users is for free. Okay? If you more than 5 users, you have to go and pay for additional licenses. And to get started, is as easy as if you do have Microsoft account, you can sign in with your account, which is Hotmail account, at Outlook account, or at Live account, and you will have your own dedicated account for that. And this is the same information, my name, the information, and the account. So I am owner for the account called cox.visualstudio.com, but at the same time, I am member on the following as well. So maybe some of my friends added me to help them in some projects. I will get all the membership projects that I have access to here. And this is my own account, cox.visualstudio.com. You have to, you can pick whatever any name you need for your account, maybe your organization, maybe your team account, as a prefix to visualstudio.com. And you can simply start coding your project, start creating whatever you need, and you have more options here as a team to work on. So I can create a new project here. I name it demo VS Online, and you pick whatever methodology you need to use. Even more if you are not using Microsoft tools, not using Visual Studio to develop or to create your application, like Java people or people who are using Android or PHP or whatever, you have the flexibility to use Visual Studio version control or even using Git source control. So we have added this capability lately, which is if you need to use Microsoft tools, you have the flexibility to use Foundation version control. Or if you need to use others that can support Git as a distributed source control system, you can use it. So I can go with Visual Studio version control, and it will create the project for me. While it created, let's navigate to an already existing project to understand more what feature I can gain from Visual Studio Online. So maybe it's a project. Maybe I will go to this one. So this is the dashboard for my whatever any effort we are doing. If we plan this project to be released in some iterations, we will get the information here. But I can start by code, work, build, and test. As simple as that. Code, it gives me like a browser-based code view to my code that already I'm using from Visual Studio or I'm using from any other tools. So I can even navigate here the development and the files as well to understand all the information about that files and who did the last change and what was the command. And even more, I can see here from the history all the changes that has been done to this project from start to end. And even with every change, I can just click on this change set to understand, okay, this is Hussam who did this last change at which date, okay? And what were the files? I have 2 files added and 7 files edited, okay? And I can group those files by path, which means that the path of the file or the change type. So show me all the files that has been added and then show me all the files that has been edited, for example. So I can have the files information here. And for the files added, let's go back to the file path. For the file added, you will simply see that this file has been changed. We have changed the file and we have removed a project or added a project. So I can simply understand all the changes, what items has been removed, what line of code has been removed, and what line of code has been added. Okay, and I can simply add a comment for the developer. I can say, okay, why we removed that one. And owner for that component can reply back to me, say, okay, this is actually because we did refactoring. Or I can create a task or create a bug or whatever, anything from this command. I say, okay, please revert back to the old installation or the old implementation because we need it. We don't need this change now. So I can have visual way of seeing what changes has been made during the project development in all. And at the same time, I can jump to work, and the work where I can plan my effort. For example, if we are a team working on a Windows 8 app or a Windows Phone app, we can say, okay, this app should have main 5 features. So we will add the features here. Okay? And this feature can be, for example, create a home screen for my expenses or my to-do or whatever the application logic that you are trying to do. So you add here the main feature that you need to use. And for the sprint, it is like a shorter iteration. For example, we need to have our beta 1 submitted to the store by end of that month, of this month. So for the end of this month, we will not be able to implement all the features. So we will pick only one feature, which is I need to be able to see, for example, my home screen for my expenses. So I simply move that one to the sprint and say, okay, in this sprint, we will only do this implementation or do this feature. And I can break down this feature into tasks. So I say, okay, create the UI should be done by Hussam and assign it to any team members I have. Okay, and say, okay, this will should be taking 2 hours, for example. Save a close. And start adding many tasks as I need. In the project, I can simply go to Visual Studio and say, okay, I need to connect now to my Visual Studio Online. I open Team Explorer here. It will ask me to open or select the project. I will select the project. What servers I have been adding, I can add a server here. Say, okay, my server is cux.visualstudio.com, and I will add it. It will ask me for the authentication if I'm not authenticated, and I will close that one. It will get me all the list of the projects I have. So I may pick any project I need and say, okay, connected to that project. Connecting to that project will give me my work, which is the tasks I'm working on, the source control, where I can see what this project contains in terms of files and source control, and I can simply start working on that one, do a check in and check out simply. So, because we are running out of time, I will just do a quick check in and check out to see how this is working actually in terms of the development of Visual Studio with Visual Studio Online. So you can simply start by getting the source files into your local hard disk. So I create a folder here called, for example, inside my document, called, for example, dev work. I will name it TFS. I will click on OK. Now I mapped what is on the server, okay, with what I have on my machine. So I get a copy. This copy I can use to work on, to practice, to do whatever in a work needed. And then when I do the check-in, all that changes will go directly. So now I have created, I find that I have different solutions here because we do have branches, what we call branches and so on. I can just jump into the development one, iteration 2, and say, okay, please open this solution. However, if the solution is outdated solution, it will be upgraded automatically for me to Visual Studio 2013, and it will give me the migration report. If I have issue with migrating any project, I will get it. So now if I open my solution explorer, I will find that there is some icons that has been added here, which means that this project is controlled by TFS. So any changes I will start to do, and I will get the references and get the code peak and get everything. Any change I will start to do, it simply can be done back or can be checked in back to Team Foundation servers through the check-in. So I'm checking in those files that I have changed to the Team Foundation server. And I can even right-click here to understand what items I have changed actually, what was the change. So I can compare this with the latest version. It will give me all the items that got changed automatically by the upgrade I did. And I can simply check in the item to the source of control or say, okay, initial upgrade. I will do the check-in. It will go automatically to Team Foundation server, and I can simply go here and say, okay, open the web portal. It will open the web portal project for me, which means that Visual Studio Online. And if I navigate into the code, I can simply, from the history, I can see any comments I have added or any changes I have did, which is initial upgrade, for example, the one that we have did. And I can only focus on my changes. I have different team members working on the same project. Or I can even click on that one to understand what items that has been changed. And from Visual Studio at any time, I did some change, but I really need to retrieve back the old version. So I can go here to the source control, say, get latest version, which means we'll get the latest version of source control. We'll get a specific version, which allow me to retrieve any version of the files, by date, by label, by workspace version, different option to retrieve an older version of my application. So it gives you the flexibility to just focus on what you need to do. For example, maybe to work more on the code levels, control, or even more, we plan our project, so we add features, we add components, and we break down into tasks where the team can start work. Or even for the test, I can run some tests on my application as well if my application contains some testing team already existing. So you have a lot of features actually that you can use across your team even, but you may be starting by focusing mainly on source control and moving into planning your project or testing your project. We have different. So because we are running out of the time, quickly, this was like a quick overview about some of enhancements that we have added in Visual Studio 2013 and Visual Studio Online. But for sure, with every one of the features that we talked about, the web, the Windows 8, the Windows Phone, and even more the Visual Studio Online, we have many details and many features, sub-features that we can discuss. But because of the time, I just wanted to give you like a quick overview about the main features that we have so far. Okay. So thank you so much for your time. Amna, back to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Hussam. Yes, really, it's amazing session. And guys, you can get Visual Studio and download via Dream Spark program. So the link now on IM. You can download Visual Studio. And end of the call, I would like to thank Hussam Kamal from Center of Expertise MEA. And thank you very much, you guys, and have a good day all.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye. Thank you. You have, guys, you will have my contact, so anyone need to have any more clarification or information, just bring me over my email. I will share the presentation with Amna, so it will be forwarded to you. So whenever you need anything, just bring me over the email.
Yes, and you can see recording on YouTube. I will share with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.